Thank you.
I kind of had a question about your thoughts on the practicality of doing all these construction industrial complex projects, because the US and European Union and these Western countries are really service economies at this point. And so the only people I could foresee even being able to rebuild Gaza, rebuild nuclear power plants, canal networks would be probably the Turks, the Chinese, and the Saudis are the only countries who have that big inbuilt industrial complex that could build large projects like that, or who have built large projects in the past, decade or so. The U.S., I know our NGOs are very centered around regime change, as USAID, is all those events have kind of showed. So what are your thoughts on, how can what is the practicality of something like this? Is this all just a kind of PR stunt? Thank you, guys.
Matt, you should answer that, and I also want to hear what Jose says about that. But what do you say, Matt?
Well, I was involved with reconstruction by the U.S. government in Iraq and Afghanistan, and the United States should be nowhere near any of that. And I agree with you in terms of the American corporations as well as the NGOs. They just have had the opportunity to do such work over the last couple decades, including in the Balkans, and they have been just spectacular examples of fraud and incompetence. And you're right. Those nations you pointed out, particularly the Chinese, can do that work, and they do that work all the time. One of the things the Americans are really upset about in South America is the Chinese just built a port for the Peruvians, so they probably will be able to do one in Gaza for the Palestinians as well.
What government has proposed that kind of thing beyond what we just heard from Donald Trump? Okay.
And if they haven't proposed it, who do we think is up for
public.
it?
Yeah.
Who's up for it? Who's
going to assert that?
We've also heard from the Saudis and the Qataris that they're not going to be involved in any rebuilding unless there's a permanent solution.
That's why I think you need to have security guarantees, like multinational security guarantees, right? You can't just have, because that's the thing. And I know that this, not to kind of cross this over into Ukraine, but one of the proposed peace plan for Ukraine is that they'll have security guarantees in a demilitarized zone with British and French troops.
Do you guys think that whatever type of coalition that might be put together for this could also be used for other projects as well? Is that unnecessarily complicating it, or would that make it more appealing?
If you had the U.S., Russia, China as a part of a coalition and going around the world and building up other nations that are developing, I think that would be a great idea.
Right. You could even have a situation, you can imagine a situation where you have different countries involved, and it's like a competition essentially, right? So
that would appeal to Trump.
Then you have that case where Trump has to beat Xi Jinping and Putin because Putin's doing Khan Yunis and Xi Jinping's doing Gaza City and Trump's got Rafah, right? So he's got it right. That type of who's going to build it better. You can get.
Well, that's interesting.
But the idea though of what's being spoken about is this was the purpose of essentially the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, right? And we saw what the reality of that has been since the end of the Second World War. But this idea of having development banks, whether they're by one country or by multinational institutions like BRICS. And I don't know if they have it or they're building it out now. BRICS will have a development bank capability to be an alternative to the World Bank.